Oh, wow. I can't begin to tell you how incredible it is just to be able to look out and see each and every one of you here. And we cannot begin to tell you how much we have been looking forward to this moment of having you all gathered. So many of you old friends, and yet so many of you too soon to become new friends. From 72 nations from around the world and across the disciplines of business, media, politics, the arts, civil society, the academy, education, all of you are so, so welcome. Each of you has been personally invited. You are all here because you have been personally invited. And you have been personally invited because you are people of courage, vision, and with a transformational mindset. Convinced that there is a better story. Convinced that better story has solid foundations that need to be rediscovered. And convinced that better story is rooted in hope. It hardly needs to be stated, looking out at everybody, that this is a community of people of courage and strength who are quite literally dedicated to the rebuilding of the foundations of our nations. We believe that foundations are worth rediscovering. The best of our cultural heritage, foundations from our liberal democratic history and foundations from our precious Judeo-Christian history, and that it is time to remember who we are. There was once a day in Western nations where we took seriously the extraordinary value of every single human being. The fact that each person was made in the image of the divine, that profoundly impacted the very foundations of Western civilization. It was as this truth permeated every aspect of the woven fabric of our societies that the pillars on which our societies were erected were built. It was also once recognized that society works best when those pillars of freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom to meet and to gather, freedom to sell and exchange are honored. These freedoms led to an understanding that if I worked hard and invested my time, my energy, and money into an entity, that my right to what I created was protected, and the rule of law would be upheld, and the democratic order would be established. Over this was laid a code, not just outlining the pillars on which a society would be built, but also the way in which humans would interact with one another. This code would lead to profound human flourishing. A code of kindness, of truth, gentleness, respect, goodness. Against such things there was no law. But as we have become separated from the source of why man is infinitely valuable, we've seen an unraveling of the pillars on which our societies are built, and a collapsing of the way in which we interact with one another. It's time for us to rediscover the better story. Over the next 3 days, as part of discovering that better story, we're going to be going on a journey. We're going to ask a series of questions from, is it possible to have a better story? How can the very fabric of our society be strengthened? How can we unleash the entrepreneurial power of business? And how should we view the responsibility of environmental stewardship at a time of energy transition? We are aware that we are meeting at a time when many of our nations are internally divided, where intolerance is on the rise and where we are facing a geostrategic threat rooted in the weakness of the West. And over the next 3 days, we will investigate how we have arrived at this defining moment of our societies. We're going to debate what needs to be renewed. And finally, we're going to identify a clear path forward full of strength, hope, and vision. We have the time to use this space as a moment to take stock and to remember. How did we get to this place? Is there a way forward? We stand at the crossroads, as it says up here, and we look, we ask for the ancient paths. We ask where the good way is, and we will walk in it. As we remember, though, I want to lay before you these two incredible pieces of art. They depict the journey that we are going to be going on from decline to renewal, from lament to glory. They are the works of my great friend, Makoto Fujimura, who we'll be hearing from, unsurprisingly, on day 3, the Better Story Day. Ladies and gentlemen, I have asked different ones of our advisory board why they committed to being involved with ARC. The overwhelming response I received was, this is a civilizational moment. There is a lot at stake. But also that we can't just wait for someone else to act. We all need to take responsibility. We all need to play our part in rebuilding a better world. If we don't act, who will? But we are also extraordinarily hopeful. We are convinced that decline is not inevitable, that there is a compelling, hope-filled vision for the future. We possess the knowledge that truth does exist and can be found, that foundations can be rebuilt, that people are valuable, and that the long arc of history bends towards justice. At our first meeting of the advisory board, we took time to consider a quote from Winston Churchill. We felt that this is where we stood at this moment in history at this time. When one generation no longer esteems its own heritage and fails to pass the torch to its own children, it is saying, in essence, that the very foundational principles and experiences that make it the society that it is are no longer valid. Many of us would say that is the moment that we are standing in now. What is required when this happens and the society has lost its way is for leaders to arise who have not forgotten the discarded legacy and who love it with all their hearts. So our vision for ARC is to build a community of people of courage and strength who will quite literally rebuild the foundations of our nations. We believe there is a better story, and it is one of optimism that sees a future of abundance and opportunity, not scarcity and decline. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we open this inaugural ARC conference, we invite you to go on the journey from darkness, fragmentation, division, polarization, and intolerance to a better story, one that is rooted in the infinite value of every human being, built on the freedoms of freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and woven together with kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control by a responsible people. And as I'm sure we will hear Jordan Peterson say shortly, welcome aboard the ARC.